When we look back at when the Apple Watch was first launched, there were three pillars or three use cases. It was a communication device, a fitness health tracker, and Apple emphasized a precise timepiece. 10 years later, I would say those three use cases are still the three primary use cases. Yes, the fitness and health tracking has been emphasized. Communication, I think, is still relevant. I wouldn't necessarily say it's been de-emphasized. Maybe some of the exact features that Apple thought we were going to use, maybe we haven't used as much as they thought, but there's no dramatic change from that. Precise timepiece, well, yeah, watch faces. We usually get new watch faces each year. Another critical component to the device. One thing that I think a lot of people probably were kind of thrown that kind of were thrown off guard by was out of the gate. Apple did go very hard with the luxury marketing for Apple Watch, and we later saw Apple Watch pull back a lot of that luxury marketing. It's still somewhat there. It's just not emphasized as much. And some people say, "Oh, well, that was a major pivot. That flopped or that failed." But the way that I looked at that initial strategy out of the gate was Apple did all of the luxury marketing and the luxury focus to prevent Apple Watch from falling down what had been the prevailing trend of wrist wearables being considered uncool. Like, oh, you have a computer on your wrist. People saying that with a negative connotation. Apple wanted to avoid that, or they wanted to attack that head on out of the gate. And the way to do that, what Apple thought was, well, let's really focus on the luxury, the fashion, the style. But I think what ended up happening is Apple Watch design, the inherent design found with Apple Watch and the interchangeable bands, it was enough to not have people think of it as being uncool. There was a coolness found with Apple Watch from day one. And that allowed Apple to say, okay, we don't need to do the gold Apple Watches. We don't need to go we don't need to experiment with coming up with more precious metal types of Apple Watches where we need to actually focus on scarcity to sell these devices. Instead, we could really start focusing on scale and getting these devices out on as many wrists as possible. You then saw the greater emphasis on health and fitness capabilities. A lot of that was due to it was easy to sell. People, consumers were open to the idea of, okay, yeah, I could see myself using those features. I was a big proponent of saying fitness is niche, health can be mass market. But hey, back in the 2010s, I'm thinking about what was out in the marketplace. You had Fitbit doing mostly fitness. Health was still very much kind of an obtuse topic. What does health monitoring even mean? Now look at Apple Watch. Now look at the ability that you have in terms of health and fitness tracking. I would argue health is now far more important than fitness tracking. And that's not to say fitness tracking is useless, it's not to say it's not as important, or I should say it's not important, but I think out of the two, I still think health is that mass market feature set. It is the thing that if Apple can bring more health monitoring features, more sensors to the Apple Watch, that could be the thing that really gets this device on more and more wrist.